Hello, everybody. My name is Tony Rizzano, and this is another episode of the world famous, the University of Love, the best podcast in 1, 2, 3 galaxies. Ladies and gentlemen, you and I, we just call this show Online Marketing Moves. Ladies and gentlemen, we are 400 and some episodes into this podcast, you know. We're coming to you live today. Today, we have something very important to discuss. Ladies and gentlemen, I was listening Friday or Saturday, one of the two. It's this podcast that I listen to once a week. It's a podcast from a guy named Dan Kennedy. If you don't know Dan Kennedy, he's like a marketing expert, copywriting legend. He's written a lot of books. I've read quite a few of his books. They're pretty good. And you know, not him, but the guy Russell Brunson bought his magnetic marketing business, and so he has decided to come out every week with an old podcast of Dan Kennedy, you know, teaching something. And this week, he was talking about marketing versus selling, and it was a very interesting topic. I highly recommend that you listen to the podcast, you know, especially if you know, because no matter what kind of business you're in, no matter what you do, you have to market yourself. You can have the worst product, but if the marketing is great, then you will still make a buck. If you have the best product in the whole wide world, nobody knows about it, you're not going to make a whole lot of money. It's just how it is. And so marketing is very important. So this podcast is good. It has a lot of different things. You know, they talk about a lot of different things. And he was talking about having a script. He was talking about scripting out things. You know, scripting out because he was talking about how he was on the speaking circuit for like 9 years, and how he basically used the same speech for every show, for every conference he went to. And there was another guy who would use different topics, different things. He would switch it up a lot. And sometimes he made a lot of money, sometimes he did not. And Mr. Kennedy said that he hit the same mark all the time because he used a script. And he said, you know, when he's selling things, you know, if you have a sales business, sales force, you want to use the same script, you know, as much as you can. You should use it all the time. And it got me to thinking about the content that we all create, you know. And as you well know, in this podcast, I can only use myself for an example, because, you know, I don't want to say, I can't think for you. I can't think for the next person, this person, that person. I don't know what's inside your head, you know. So I can't speak for you. I can only speak for the thoughts that I have, you know. And when I started this podcast, even up to this day, script, no script. You know what I mean? It's the only thing that I have in mind, the only thing that I script out is the topics. You know, I know what I'm going to talk about 99% of the time. I know the same. I do a few notes and I take it from there. I don't have a quote unquote script. And they got me to thinking. But in the last few months, you know, because let's be honest, I have listenership, but of course we all want to have more listenership, you know. We all want more, you know. It's just the way it is. The more listeners you have, the more advertising you can get, and the more money you can make. You know, it's just the nature of you know, the landscape. And so it got me to thinking. Dan Kennedy got me to thinking. And I thought, that's pretty good. And it got me to thinking because I'm going to start writing letters, and I'm going to start calling people about writing emails for them. It's a good way to get into the copywriting business. So I'm going to start doing that. I've already wrote down some notes that I can put together in a letter, in a package, and start sending out to people. And so it got me to thinking, and I thought, in order for me to sell my services, having a script would be a good idea, And it also got me to thinking about the podcast, because there's a show that I watch sometimes, once or twice a week. It's a YouTube channel. It's a YouTube channel, but it's also a podcast. And so the guy, he does this monologue, and the monologue that he reads from is from an article that he's written or something, and he'll read it verbatim, and I'm like, and it got me to thinking. I'm like, that's a pretty good way to, you can kill two birds with one stone. You write an article, you use the article for your monologue on your podcast, and I thought that's pretty smart, actually. And it got me to thinking, and I'm like, because before I always wanted this show to be like, I know eventually you have to corral yourself. Eventually you have to have some structure, some real structure, in order for you to move on, in order for you to be a highly successful podcast. You have to have structure. You have to have a format. You have to have a formula. It's just the way it is, and that's okay. And it got me to thinking, and it's like, should I? Because, and this can be for you too. There's a way for you to kill two birds with one stone. Let's say you do a video. You record the video. You set it up to where you can you can record the video, but then you can record the audio on your video, Or if you do a podcast, you can do the podcast and then download the content as a blog post or as something, that you've written down. Or you can do it vice versa, You can write an article, and then you can take that article and use it in a podcast. And it's like, will that work? And I think it definitely can work, because people always say they want real. People always say they want honesty. People always say they want like unscripted, but they really don't. You know what I mean? Like, you might be the minority. I might be the minority about, we want unscripted, unfiltered. You want real time, because I could be recording right now, and I'm not in the studio. I don't edit the show. I don't do any of that. So it could be some guy walking by screaming. Like, one night I had somebody stop me, and he said, "All right, man, you're done," And I was like, "All right." And then I had been 20 minutes into the show, and I said, I'm not going to edit that. It's just going to be in the show, That thing will never happen from some more established podcast. You know what I mean? Like, they would cut, first off, they wouldn't even be where I'm at. They would try to go, because everybody that does a podcast, or everybody that wants to do podcasts, they all try to find some studio, and they all try to go in there, Instead of worrying about the content, which I always thought is the most important, they worry about the studio space and all that, which that's fine. But it doesn't really matter until you get established, Until you realize that this is something that you want to do I wouldn't care about where you do it, how you do it, you know. But once you get it established that you're like, all right, this is my jam, this is what I want to do, then you can start scripting, you know. It doesn't have to, you don't have to come out the gate being scripted. But if you want to sell a service to people, if you want to, you know, actually bring more people in, then you have to find some structure. You have to start going off a script. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a bad connotation. There's not a negative thing if you read from a monologue or anything like that. I mean, all these Hollywood types do it. It doesn't hurt the authenticity of the show. It won't hurt the authenticity of your program. It's matter of fact, it might actually help you make a better point than what you're trying to make. Because sometimes, like for me, I'm at the point now where I can sort of go with the flow and pick things up and get ahead of steam and keep going. But in the beginning, you might need a script. You know, you might need something to, you know, say, hey, you know, or it doesn't have to be scripted out completely. But if you have bullet points, you know, if you have bullet points, you can do that too. But the thing about having a script, let's say you do a podcast, you could take that podcast and you can turn it into a blog post, you know, and that will help. Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to use your content as much as you can. You want to be able to slice it, dice it, cover it, chunk. I had an episode about this. It's from the archives. I have to listen. One of these days, ladies and gentlemen, I will be able to. One of these days, ladies and gentlemen, I will be scripted. And one of these days, when I say that, when I use a phrase like that, you can go back into the archives. I will be able to pinpoint the exact episode that I said this on, you know. But unfortunately for you, at this moment in my life, it's not the case. So, a long time ago, about spreading your content, you have to go through the archives and see it for yourself. But tomorrow, if I think about it, I can't make any promises. A lot of times when I get home, I forget things. A lot of times I had to watch my daughter early in the morning, and by the time the afternoon comes, my brain is, you know, kind of spinning, so I'll forget. But I'll look it up, maybe. I'll let you know tomorrow. And that's another thing. If this was a scripted show, I would have been able to tell you that immediately, you know. I used to listen to this. Show with a guy named Pat Flynn. You know, he had a pretty good podcast. You know, a lot of these podcasts I used to listen to. I don't listen to now just because of time and just because, you know, you can't spend all your, you know, in order for you to really go at your business that you want to, in order for you to fulfill yourself and do the things that you want to do, you have to cut down on the content listening, and you have to increase the content creation. It's just how it is. And so, unfortunately, Pat Flynn didn't make the cut. But he had this great thing he would do in his show, and he would say, "Hey, I got show notes from the show. If you didn't pick up on everything, I'll have a PDF for you of the show notes, and go to blah 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 blah." And then he said, you know, and there we have all these great tools and these great tips for you, yada yada yada. And that's just another way of, that's just a smart way for somebody to enter your world and for you to keep them there. Because as I told you before, world building is the thing that you want to do. You want somebody to go from A to Z inside your world, you know. You don't want them to have to venture out, because people have attention spans are like gnats these days. So, but he had this great thing about show notes and all this kind of stuff. And another podcast I used to listen to was Amy Porterfield, and she was a good podcaster. She you could tell that her stuff was scripted and it was down pat, And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, God, I one day we'll be there, you know. But today we're still off the cuff, and that's fine too. But she used to have this thing where she would talk about an episode, and she would say, you know, episode 320, you can go back there and listen to that episode, and she would just rattle them off, you know, because they was in her face, you know what I mean? Like she already knew, you know. Somebody did the research for her, you know. And ladies and gentlemen, that actually helps, you know. The more the bigger the team you can get, the better off you will be. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard sometimes when you're just a one-man show and you're producing yourself and you're doing the whole thing. You know, it can kind of wear you down a little bit. You know, but if you have somebody that look that stuff up for you, then you can just, you know. But you know, sometimes it is what it is. You know, you won't always have, especially if you're just starting off. You know. We all can't be Barack Obama and have Bruce Springsteen as our podcast host. You know what I mean? And have a whole team already lined up, ready to go. You know what I mean? That doesn't work like that for all of us. So it is what it is. But there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. And so, you know, especially if you are going to be, you know, let's move past the content creation stuff, because that part, yeah, you definitely want to have eventually, you know, to really grow. You know, let's be honest with each other, okay? To really grow, you know, and that's what you want. You know, let's not BS each other around, okay? Like I love you, and I have a lot of fun doing this podcast, and you know, we're off the cuff and all this stuff, you know, and it is wonderful and it's great. It's a joy and it's a blessing. But I'm in it to win it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in it to eventually get some sponsors and to create, you know, relationships and make as much, money as I can for this podcast. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And so eventually you're gonna hear me, and I'm gonna say, oh, in episode 292, you can go back to the archives. You're gonna be like, oh man, this guy done went commercial, you know. Of course, what's wrong with you, you know? I will be Pearl Jam after their big hits, you know what I mean? You know how these people are always like, they love the indie band, but they don't like the band when they start going gold and platinum. I hope some of you that's been here in the beginning, when it was we had a whole new podcast. We had another podcast name, you know. Some of you might have been here since then, you know. You're gonna be like, man, this guy done went real Hollywood on me. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, I just want to let you know that right now, you know. I mean, hey, listen. I saw Pat McAfee. He got like $120 million from FanDuel, you know, to be the exclusive, like sponsor of his YouTube channel, you know. Now, hey, listen. I'm no Pat McAfee. Don't get me wrong, but if we can just get a small slither of that, we'll be okay. What do you think, huh? But anyway, now let's go on to selling, you know. And as I told you before, we're all salesmen, man. Listen. Anybody that has a negative connotation about selling, then it just get rid of them, okay? You can get rid of them, because we're all salesmen, you know. It does not matter who you are. It does not matter what you do. It does not matter. It does not matter. I don't care if you sweep floors for a living. If you're a doctor, we're all in the sales business, okay? Relationships, what do you think relationships are, huh? I had to sell myself to my wife, you know what I mean? I had to sell my wife on why she should marry me, you know? I had to do a whole lot of convincing, okay? It is what it is, you know? And whenever you date somebody, that's what you're basically doing. You're selling yourself. Now, you eventually, you might not like the person. You might be like, you know what? You're fired. But it is what it is. And you sell yourself when you go to a job. You know how you go to a job and you wear your suit, you wear your dress, and they say, hey Johnny, hey Jill, do you think you can work overtime here? You think you work Saturdays and Sundays? And you nod your head because you really want the job, and you go, oh, yes, I would love to work overtime. I do not have a life. I would always be here first, job first. And then 4 months later, they ask you, hey, you think you can work a little later today? And you go, oh, no. I got kids. I can't go pick them up. A bag of beans, okay? And that's just how it is. But when it comes to selling, when it comes to anything like that, you might want to figure out a script, It would be kind of hard to be off the cuff and try to sell somebody a $10,000 coaching program, What if you wanted to be a life coach and you're like, hey, it's $10,000. If you could swipe your card right now, or I sure appreciate it. That ain't gonna fly, So you want to have a setup. You want to have a thing where maybe somebody will call and they say, hey, you're interested in this coaching program. This coaching program is, and you might want to have somebody vet them, and then you talk to them, or you might want to vet them and then you talk to them. If you don't think it's a good fit, then you can be like, all right, we appreciate you. We'll get back to you. And then, you just send them an email or something, or you can just tell them, hey, this is not going to work for me. I don't think you're a good fit for my program. God bless, blah, 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 blah. But you want to have a script, especially when you're selling stuff. You want to know what direction you want to go whenever you are, in front of somebody trying to get their business. It's just the way it is. You don't want to go into you don't go into a football game with no plan. And it's the same as business. You don't go into a business meeting with no plan. You don't go in there with just like, hey, we winging it. Work that way. Don't do that. Like, have a plan, have thoughts, have it scripted out. And the more detail you can get, the better off you will be. It's like when I used to watch wrestling back in the day, and the great Randy Savage, the great Macho Man, everything that I read some articles about Macho Man, and they talked about how the Macho Man used to go over every single move he would do in a match, word for word, step by step. Drop, toe, elbow, slam. He would go over every single thing in his match. And that's just the way he operated. And it worked for him. And he had some great matches. And so that's the same for you, If you're going to sell somebody on yourself, or you're going to sell somebody on your business, you want to have, when I say script, I don't mean phony, Let's just get this out the way. When I say script, I don't mean you don't have to be reality TV phony. You know how those reality TVs, they have the worst god awful plots, and they're like, well, today Todd Chrisley here, he got into a car accident and he's standing on the side of the road. Todd, I can't believe you got into this accident. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Don't tell my mom that I got into an accident. And then the mom pulls up and she's like, did you get into an accident? Like, no, that's fake script. We're not talking about that kind of script. We're not talking about a god-awful movie script and god-awful none of that. We're talking about hey man, you're going to meet the president, Let's say you're going to meet the president of the United States. You would think you met the president of the United States. I don't care who it is. From Reagan to Bush, Trump, Obama, George Washington, does not matter. Does not matter the president. If you're going to meet the president, what are you going to say? Shit, I'm just going to go up in here and, hey, prayers. about what you're actually going to talk about. You know what I mean? You're going to try to steer the conversation in a way. And that's how it is when you're doing business, you know, when you're conducting business. You know, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you have to be rigid. You have to be frigid, but you want to have a general sense of which way you want to go. You want to have, a series of questions that you want to ask, or a series of thoughts that you want to share with them about your business, why they should work with you, this, that, and the other, you know. And you figure out what is working, you figure out what's not working, and then you hone it, and then you craft it, and then you master it, and then you take it from there. And that's how it goes. I remember I listened to the great Zig Ziglar one time. He had the same rap, you know, and he would always say he was a country boy out of Yazoo, Mississippi, you know. Zig told a great story, you know. He had a script down pat, you know, and it was good. It was great, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so Dan Kennedy, he helped me out this week. He helped me open my eyes, and I thought, you know, this guy's right. I gotta really hunker down on my script. I really gotta hunker down on my stuff, you know, on my words, and you know, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna do? And think about it more and more and more, you know, instead of just always flying off the handle, you know, flying off the handle. You know, it's cool and all that, but it don't pay the bills. You know what I mean? And so, ladies and gentlemen, be smart. Figure it out. You know, script does not mean phony. Script just means, hey, you know what you're gonna say. You know what you want to talk about, what you want to do, and take it from there. All right. And the more you do it, the better off you will be. You will hone your skills. You will hone your craft. You will hone your script, and it will be the best. And then you will be the best, and you'll make all the monies. All right. But ladies and gentlemen, this episode, we'll be back tomorrow with all new episode of Online Marketing Moves. But until then, my name is Tony Rizzano. Thank you for listening. And now this is a script right here, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, everybody, peace.